Hey, this is Mark Washington, MTC Media here at here at MSG DePaul 71, Georgetown 67. Warriors fall to the Blue Demons for the third time this year. I want to start this off by apologizing. I only have the post-game interviews with Cooley and DePaul. I was not able to get players in a locker room that's supposed to be open. So that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. But going back through this game, we talked about in the first two meetings, 3 of the 4 halves where Georgetown has played DePaul has shot over 50%. Make that 5 out of 6. DePaul shot 52% in the first half. They shot 50% from the floor in the second half. And it's just hard to win that way when your defense, in 5 of the 6 halves that you play against DePaul, you let them shoot over 50%, including one half where they shot over 60%. And there was a lot of things that kind of went wrong at the very beginning. I just thought that DePaul was kind of hitting shots. Georgetown switches to zone, shows some diamond press, erased a 15-point deficit in the first half to lead at halftime. And then that kind of bled into the second half where Georgetown quickly went out and pushed the lead to 7 before DePaul against the zone ends up hitting a couple of threes, kind of loosened things up. And then after that, they really threw the ball into N.J. Benson, who ended up being a difference maker coming back from injury. And he was on I guess a kind of like an informal minutes count. He ended up with 18 points and 4 rebounds and certainly gave Drew as much trouble as a big person could give someone. Fielder ended up fouling out simply because DePaul ran really good action that ISO'd Benson on to Fielder, and he was very successful getting inside. And then he sat out. He sat out the last few minutes because, again, he's coming off injury. And then Georgetown makes this run, have a chance near the end, and just couldn't make enough plays at the end. So when you looked at my keys, one of the things was defense, and that didn't go well. I thought that Malik Mack had to contribute outside of points. He had 7 points and no assists, no turnovers, 2 steals. I didn't really think that he played particularly bad. He did have some foul trouble early on in the first half where he had a couple of fouls, so probably didn't play as much as he would have had he been able to avoid those fouls. And it's a disappointing end to the season. You get swept 3 times by DePaul, and Cooley talks about it, and you'll see it in the post game. Every time there was a missed assignment that ends up being a big play down the stretch that makes the difference. Tonight it was a 3-pointer by it was Leighton Blocker who hits the 3, and Cooley explained there was a failed switch. And then he talked about the previous 2 games where there was some lack of communication that ended up giving DePaul big shots, and a lot of times big shots at the end of shot clocks. So I can understand where he's upset, because those are things you can control no matter how many injuries you have. Those are things that you can control. And tonight it just didn't it just did not come together despite some stretches of basketball where they really made DePaul look bad. And if you want to say, and I haven't gone back through all of the numbers, but when N.J. Benson wasn't on the floor, he was a +7. But when he wasn't on the floor, I mean, Georgetown just absolutely dominated DePaul. I thought they turned the ball over. I thought there was times where they just made DePaul settle. And then they were able to use DePaul's missed shots to get out running into attack and to do those things. But for a guy coming off injury, Benson looked pretty darn good for DePaul. So just digging through the stats a little bit, PV had 26 points and 7 rebounds. Once again, he just put Georgetown on his back at times and carried this team. Fielder, despite shooting 3 for 13 from the field, was 5 for 6 from the line. Hit 11 points, 11 rebounds before he fouled out. I thought Curtis Williams gave Cooley some really, really, really good minutes. He had 11 points in 27 minutes and 55 seconds. And that's the thing Cooley talked about. Again, we talked about this all year. When you're hurt the way they're hurt with the players they're hurt with, there's a lot of things defensively that they would have done, because I'm sure they would have put a lot more defensive pressure, which was successful if the bench wasn't there. And he talked a little bit about it. He said, well, the pressure waned because he thought that they got tired. And they probably did get tired. It's just not enough. It's just not enough healthy bodies, and it's kind of a terrible way for the season to end that would have been much better than 17 and 15. And even though Georgetown did make progress, don't get it twisted. This was a huge step forward for the program. Huge step forward for the program. But it could have been better. And this is beyond Cooley. It's beyond, you had injuries, and kids can't be something that they're not. You know, they can't be something that they can improve in areas, they can do things better as the season go on, they can learn, they can build. But as Cooley has said before, you know, it's just not this magic button that says, okay, now we have injuries. Oh, well, now your progression speeds up exponentially. That's just not how this works. So give Ed Cooley and his staff a lot of credit. Yes, it's a very disappointing end to the season. Yes, you don't want to get swept by DePaul. And it was said 1,000 times, this is Chris Holtman's first Big East win. He's 1-3 now in the Big East tournament, even though he was quick to say that, you know, in those years that they lost in the Big East tournament, that they fared well in the NCAA tournament. So give Coach Holtman some credit there. I'm going to try to have as much Georgetown content as we move forward with the season and with the off season, and see if I can get as much access I can get, so I can get you guys as much information as I can get you guys. I have enjoyed this season. I have enjoyed any and everyone who has stopped me at games and talked about how much they enjoy my content or they watch my content. You know, I want to try to give you as much Georgetown content as the university allows me to give you. So I'm going to keep digging at it, and hopefully this time next year I'm talking to you on Saturday night and not talking to you earlier in the week. It's Marcus Washington, TCB.